Good evening, everyone. This is the East Lyme Board of Finance regular meeting of Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. The time is now 6:31 p.m. We are holding this meeting via Zoom, and we will have a few reports followed by some appropriation requests, followed by budget presentations this evening. The agenda does have an agenda item for delegations. I will double check to see if there are any attendees. There are not. Would any of the panelists that are not a Board of Finance member like to address the Board of Finance at this time? Okay, seeing no hands and hearing no voices, we will close delegations and move on to approval of the meeting minutes from the regular meeting of March 10th, 2021. Did everybody have a chance to review them? Can I have a motion to approve them?
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of March 10th, 2021 for the Board of Finance.
Thanks, Ann Chikello. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Rich Steele. Is there any discussion on the meeting minutes?
Yeah, I just have one correction. Under reports, which is section D, first page of the minutes. Actually, the second paragraph where it says Ms. Santoro twice, that's actually Rich Steele, who was engaging in that questioning right there. So I believe that was you, Rich.
So under reports, the second paragraph where it says Ms. Santoro asked about the 3 lunch waves.
Right, and then it says it again, and in the next paragraph, there's another question. Those 2 Ms. Santoro should be Mr. Steele.
I think actually it was me who said asked those questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know it wasn't me.
I know they got Ann right, just the last name was wrong.
Okay.
Okay.
Are there any other questions, comments, or corrections? So, Ann, you'll amend your motion to approve with the corrections that were notated?
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of March 10th, 2021 with the amendments as so noted.
Okay, thank you. And we have our second with Rich Steele. So all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? And I will abstain. I was absent from that meeting, so the motion carries 5-0-1. Thank you. With that, we'll move right into reports. The first one from the first selectman.
Hi, everyone. I'm not used to going first. I guess no Board of Ed tonight. Didn't look. Hello, everyone. We're compiling the statistics that you asked for the other evening when speaking to the board, to the police commission and to the chief. And we're pulling lots of statistics together. Please keep in mind and remember that the police commission and our police leadership have stated that in backed with facts, that without crime increases and without town growth, we're still 12 officers short from the very minimum that we should have. We're going to send you all that stuff, and we'll also include crime increases in statistics that would say we need more than 12, but we're going to get to at least the 12 over the next 6 years to a year. You'll receive that information much earlier than you requested. We're going to try to get that out to you by end of the day tomorrow or first thing on Friday. You'll have the whole weekend. I think we're up to about 8 different reports right now. Some things we won't be able to comply with. It's going to take far too long than 3 business days or even 2 weeks to put together some of the statistics. I think the chief already explained the reasons why, but I think the facts that we presented will be backed up with reports, and you'll see that. Secondly, the governor signed an executive order a week or two ago. That gives the town's authority to change budget dates as set forth in our charter. So the charter says we're going to have this year, the way the calendar would be, that we would have the town meeting on the 10th of May and no sooner than 7 days, no later than 14 days. And the way the calendar would be is the 20th of May would be the referendum. We're going to change that. We're still working with the town attorney to verify all this. We're going to change the town meeting date. I'm going to ask the Board of Selectmen to consider changing the town meeting date up a week to May 3rd. Your business should be over by then. We're hoping so. Now I'm going to ask you to please try to make it so. I don't think we have very complicated budgets this year. And that the town meeting will be the May 3rd, and the referendum, and there will be an in-person referendum on May 19th, a day earlier than our charter asks us to. And we have that ability to vote at the Board of Selectmen level to change that. Why the 19th? Because the executive order expires on the 20th, and it's, is it inclusive of the 20th? It says before the 20th. So we decided the 19th so we wouldn't have a legal challenge. It's a Wednesday, and we're going to keep it on the 19th. That's as of this moment, and there'll be some discussion at Board of Selectmen next Wednesday when we meet. By the way, there is a conflict in our schedules. I won't be at your meeting next Wednesday during your deliberations. Anna will be absent from it for a little while you guys start to your initial deliberation. That is a regular Board of Selectmen meeting. We have some items to tackle. The reason why we're spreading that time out between the town meeting, which will also be live as of this moment. We're going to work that out within the next week. But we'll probably have that in the auditorium. And then the referendum, the reason why we're baking in another week into the mix is so that we can handle absentee ballots. There's a push for it. Gosh knows where federally and statewide what the legislatures will do with absentee ballots going forward. But right now, I do believe that absentee ballots are still available. No excuse absentee ballots, but of course, Karen and her team, Karen Galbo, will be going crazy. We're not going to mail ballots to everybody. We're going to do it by request. We hope most people will just come to the referendum day on the 19th. More details to follow. That's what we're working on. We knew that some of this was going to be last minute, and surely enough, it was. Part of that executive order, or one that came out the same day, was the fact that we're allowed to still have Zoom meetings and hybrid meetings through May 20th as well. So, the FOI conflicts that can happen with Zoom meetings, and there are some, we still have a waiver on that up until May 20th. I would suggest that you still can have your public hearing that you have on the 26th of April. You can still have that by Zoom. It's up to you. That's your public hearing. The Board of Selectmen show up and we make a presentation, I think, of the CIP, but it's your meeting. You can have it by Zoom. We intend to have the town meeting in person in the auditorium. We don't generally, and again, I don't think this is going to be a controversial budget. We did a lot of work at the Board of Selectmen level. Anna and I did a lot of work before that, and you're doing a lot of great work now, and that will continue. I think we'll have a very reasonable budget. I don't think there'll be a lot of controversy that we've seen in other years. Lastly, on my what was it? Oh, the elephant in the room, the COVID money, all this COVID money. I do want to take the chance to, we have a very long agenda tonight, so I'll take 30 seconds. We can talk about it if you have questions. There's a whole pile of money coming to every town in America, and we think we'll be in the $5.5 million place on the municipal side. The Board of Ed will get a whole chunk of money as well. That's if we get the county money that's been promised us. Right now, it's $1.9 million, but we think there's a whole lot more money coming through the county. And then the state has been giving a whole lot of money, and they're going to dedicate about half of that back to the cities and towns. So they've asked us for a list of projects. They'll be worthwhile, and we're aiming for open space. We're aiming for big sidewalk projects, etc., with a big chunk of money from the state. The Board of Selectmen are interviewing nonprofits, department heads, commission members about good uses for this money. We want it we want every dime to be spent properly. Some of it will be IT, water and sewer. That's specifically spelled out. The U.S. Treasury has not come out with directions on where we can spend this. We are not going to spend this money until we know exactly how to properly spend it, so we don't owe the money back. There will be some things that might be able to come off of the capital plan that we will approve that maybe later on we could swap out and use some COVID money, save the taxpayers some money. Either way, it's all our money, or shall I say it's our great grandkids' money, because they'll be paying for it. But you know, it is tax money. We want to make sure we properly vet all the possible uses of it. And you know, our focus at the Board of Selectmen has been people, mostly and especially. So the food locker, the care and share, and the Shoreline Soup Kitchen, we want to make sure that they are poised to handle what could be a crushing increase to their organizations. Also, mental health. We've been talking to other towns. As you know, other towns, through their youth services, have social workers and a fee-for-service situation for families that might be hurting or crisis. We talked about this. Richard Steele brought the question up to the chief the other night. What about social workers? We think we need resources, not just through the school, but dovetail together, working in conjunction with the school for after hours, for weekends, for summer, and for people who are over 18 years old and have graduated through our school system. And there's going to be a lot of family crisis out there, and we want to make sure we're there with that mental health support. We also have a whole lot of other projects that we'll be bringing forth. So that's all I have for now. I know that we'll have plenty of time to talk about that, but I'll answer any questions.
Does anybody have any questions for the first selectman? Okay, seeing no questions, we'll move on to the report from the finance director.
Oh, good evening. In your regular packets included were the regular monthly revenue and expense reports along with the budget summary. On the budget summary, I'll just point out we did receive 1/3 of the Hvac grant. We received the payment special tax rate on the telephone taxes in the month of March, as we received the second quarter installment from East Lyme Ambulance on the 2 new firefighters. And the other week I did send them the invoice for the 3rd quarter. Today I did send out an estimated unassigned fund balance report through the end of this fiscal year. There have been some changes on it from what was previously reported to you. A couple of things. I am in the process of reviewing the draft audit, so I did amend the unassigned fund balance level at which would for last fiscal year is at 8.2 million. On the revenue side, up through the end of February, I had been projecting that we were going to meet our target projected revenue on the current taxes. And at the end of March, it told a different story. So if you look at the estimated revenue projections to the end of the year, you'll see that I'm showing a deficit of about $738,000. On a positive note, I will say that in discussion with the tax collector, that actually through the end of today for the month of April, we are at just under 400,000 in collections, which is really a great month, because in the prior 2 years, our collections in April were in the $200,000 range. So there is a difference showing this April. So I'm, I have a good comfort level that I'm going to be able to, at the end of this month, reduce that projected deficit amount. So that will, improve our position. The tax office did send out 30-day lien notices to taxpayers who haven't paid their real estate taxes. And as I'm led to understand, several of those individuals have already come in. And what we're finding is a good portion of them are first-time home buyers who are responsible for their tax payments that didn't realize they had to make a payment, as people who paid off their mortgages. And, because they haven't been paying their taxes, the bank has been dealing with it for them, kind of just didn't realize it. And we don't send out a second tax bill. We send out the bills in July, and there's a coupon included with that to make your second installment. So if you're not accustomed to that, you would have fallen through the cracks. So as I said, those people are coming in. And then another thing, when we send out notices like that, you have, like, at the very end of the month, you have people also running in to catch up, because the delinquent interest amount stays the same through the end of the month. So some people say, well, what difference does it make when I pay? So they tend to wait until the last minute. So I think we're going to see a notable difference at the end of this month. But I just want to show the board the most conservative approach, if you will. And then the other thing the tax office has done is sent in the file to the Department of Motor Vehicles. So when individuals go to re-register their vehicles, if their taxes aren't current, they need to pay those first before they get to do their registration. So I think that the projected deficit is going to somewhat correct itself after the end of this month. On the expenditure side, as you know, for months now, the Board of Ed has been coming to speak with you, and they have discussed an end of year deficit, and that they were expecting to come back to the board to ask for, upward of $500,000 so that they, to finish out the year. However, with the new ESSER funds that are being made available, the Board of Ed has stepped up to the plate and indicated that they plan to use that source of funds to make up for the shortfall on their side of the budget. So with all that said, the current projection is 7.6 million. In the previous month it was at 7.9 million. So there's a difference there of about a shift there of about 300,000. And as I said, I think that the way that the tax collections are going this month, that it's going to be more positive when we get to the end of this month, and will be reflected in your report next month. That's all I have to say. If anyone has any questions.
So Anna, the highlighted 1, 2, 3, 4, the 6th highlighted item, unassigned fund balance projected, that's really 6/30/2021.
You're right. Yes, I need to change that. Thank you for pointing that out.
Okay. And did we have an updated unassigned fund balance for fiscal year ending 2020?
Yeah, it's 8.2 million.
I mean, the report. Do we have a report available showing what was returned?
What do you?
So do we have this unassigned fund balance report as of fiscal year ending 6/30/2020? I'm not sure I have the final number, the final report for that after the audit.
Oh, okay. All right. I understand what you're saying. I will prepare that for you. Get it out with next month's package.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Does anybody have any questions for the finance director with what she's reported so far?
I do. Anna, on the end of year projection document that you provided to us, there are a couple of other, we'll say, deficit amounts, let's say tuition or insurance, and some other items. Are there any of these that are going to look more favorable, you think, by the end of the year?
So in terms of the tuition, I did speak with, go over this with Mariana Stevens, because I used, when their proposed budget report that they provided the board for next fiscal year, in the revenue section, they indicated what they expect to collect by the end of the year, and that's what I used to update this report. However, I also did speak with Mariana because I noticed that the last 2 monthly installments that we received from Salem, there was a notable difference. And when she reviewed that, she indicated that they have, previously they were paying for 2 special education students that they're no longer having to pay for because they're, not in the system anymore. So I think that the tuition number at this point is going to stay as it sits. The insurance reimbursement, what that has to do with is our insurance provider, Kerma. They have been for the last several years doing a rebate. So as our premiums have come down, the rebate has as well. So there's going to be no change there.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Anybody else? Anybody else with questions on for the finance director? Okay, seeing no questions, we'll move on to new business. First up is a special appropriation in the amount of $21,800, request from the building department.
Steve's here, and I'll introduce him in just a sec. You got to, folks, you know how busy it is in the remodeling trades and the development trades, and East Lyme is no exception. We're 7th in the state for new housing, and that office is on fire. I think Steve would back me up that he and I both haven't been around for all 175 years of the town's history, but this is by far the busiest year downstairs that I can attest to, and very difficult. We are at a place that we need a little help here. Steve can fill in the blanks. Our revenue is through the roof. Every time we take a permit, it requires a lot of work, but it also gets some revenue in the door. We are not supposed to be setting up the building department as a revenue source, as a profit center. The money we take in is supposed to be paying for the services we provide, and we've far exceeded that for many years. But please take a look at the facts and have Steve explain some of the detail for you.
Well, certainly, as Mark alluded, I've not been in East Lyme for 175 years, but I've been in the building trades for 45 years, and this is certainly the busiest year I've ever seen in my lifetime. And my father, who just turned 90, kind of agrees with that. He's been in the business most of his life, too. So we are... COVID is driving a lot of it. There's a tremendous amount of people that did not go on vacation, did not travel the last couple of years. They're rolling that money into their properties. Finished basements, pools, decks, additions. A whole lot of people on the south side of the tracks that are coming up from the big cities to their summer houses. They're turning them into year-round houses, or they're purchasing houses. Old Black Point alone right now has 5 new houses under construction, and another one slated, $1.8 million property slated for demolition to build the new house. So that's the kind of projects that are coming into town. So, but I'll answer any specific questions. I think the couple of items are pretty straightforward.
We're looking for clerical. We're looking for additional hours of the part-time building inspectors. And again, the revenues far outweigh the request for funding.
Does anybody have any questions for Steve Way regarding his appropriation request? Yes, Ann Chiquello.
You're requesting an additional $18,800 for 2 part-time inspectors to work up to 40 hours per week. So then, would they just be then full-time employees at that point?
No, I have 2 part-timers right now that are working a total of 32 hours. That's essentially the difference. It's an extra day of inspections is what it is. But
They would still remain
we've kind of been
part-time.
burning a little overboard for the last several months just to kind of keep somewhere near the pace. That's kind of paying for what we've probably overexpended already and getting us through the end of the fiscal year.
Okay, so they would remain part-time though?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, the 2 part-timers, yes.
got it. Thank you.
Steve, what is the backlog in terms of the number of weeks of the permits that need to be approved and other work that's piling up in your department?
The 3 to 4 weeks, that's kind of maintaining itself at this point. It's not happening in a 37.5-hour week. It's taken more like 50 hours, but we're chugging away. I'm here nights and weekends approving permits at home.
Okay, so 3 to 4 weeks worth of a backlog, and what is your, I guess, performance objective
Well,
stated in your job
ideally,
description? Is it a week or 2? Or when do
ideally,
you promise folks that you'll be turning it around?
3 to 4 weeks.
But what's the goal?
Ideally a week. That's not always possible. Some of the backlog is created by other departments. There's other departments have to do a review as well. Water, sewer, wetlands, zoning, and probably the biggest roadblock lately has been the health department. But all those departments have to do their review. I may have my review done waiting on their reviews, but it's a combination of all those various departments have a say in the process. I'm the last one of the bunch, but the fire marshal also has a review in many cases.
Okay.
Once everybody has checked off on their things, and they may all have special stipulations, my final thing is to the building code and kind of coordinate all those stipulations. And we have 4 different zoning communities.
So with this additional funding, Steve, would you be able to achieve your goal of turning those around in 1 week?
That probably wouldn't happen now.
So what will happen? What can we expect to happen?
We'll at least keep the inspections to within a week. We're now, if you called for an inspection now, you're getting one Monday. We're full till Monday. So that's what I want to keep it at, and that's why I've kind of been burning a little heavy lately to keep it at that inspection period within a week. You may not get the permit within the 3 or 4 weeks, but the very minimum want to keep the inspection time down.
Will there be an improvement in the turnaround of the 3 to 4 weeks?
Well, I certainly hope so, because one of the days that I'm picking up used to be done by myself. Now that gives me that many more hours to do plan reviews and coordinate getting those permits issued.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Let's move on. Can you please explain bullet A? Both of those line items returned to surplus last year.
Yeah. Well, in the last fiscal year, we both those positions, the clerical and the building officials, didn't work for several months. So because of the COVID, because we were shut down, and there were part-time, even the part-time administrators went to even smaller part-time. The full-time administrator went to part-time, and both my building officials didn't work at all for several months.
So are you saying that there were excess funds returned to the town at the end of the year? Is that what?
Yes.
Yeah, we didn't spend all those line items didn't get zeroed out.
Yeah, I guess there was just like a $1,500 remaining balance in the building official line. And actually, Department.
Well, that's probably my line.
No, that was
Okay.
Department 212. So we're talking about $1,600 that was returned to the town. So I was just trying to understand where you were coming from with your rationale. Okay, and the other question I have is more an Anna Johnson question. I'm not even sure that this follows GAAP. Can we actually appropriate funds from a revenue account? That does not seem correct to me.
So what we're doing is we're increasing the budget. We're increasing both the revenue projection and the expenditure amount. So that it would be in compliance with GAAP because it's actually increasing those each side of the budget.
Well, I think the charter points out after a certain point in time that we cannot change the revenue projections that we've presented to the town. So I'm still not convinced that that's GAAP. Have we ever done it before?
Yes, we have.
Um,
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you give me an example?
When we needed a new vehicle for the building department, we increased the revenue projections and did an appropriation for the purchase of that vehicle. And I believe that we've also done it in the past for additional staffing dollars. But I know for sure that we did it for the vehicle, and that was within the past couple of years.
Well, what you're really doing is you're reducing the revenue account balance to pay for this additional expenditure, right?
So what happens is because we're increasing the revenue projection, it's going to decrease the revenue surplus at the end of the year.
Well, you're not increasing the projection. Our revenue, our actual revenues that we're receiving greater than what was budgeted, right? We're never really increasing the budget amount or decreasing the budget amount of a revenue account. Once that's established, it's locked in by charter, from what I could tell. So I would say I'm not in favor of pulling the funds from this revenue account. If you want to move forward with this, this is something that would have to hit contingency. And until I got maybe an answer from our auditors or something to see if that was even really following GAAP rules. So, Board of Finance, would you like to weigh in? Anybody? So here's what I would recommend. That if it pleases the board to approve this appropriation, that we tap into the contingency account rather than this revenue account.
Can't do that.
Why
It has to come from the Board of Selectmen first.
So we can send it back then.
Yeah.
So we'll send it back.
You can't just spend money without the Board of Selectmen.
So then we'll send it back, Mark.
Right.
Okay?
Well, if it pleases the rest of your commission, of course.
Exactly. I
Right.
think I've said that a few times. So, if there is a board member that would like to entertain this motion, you're welcome to read it. If not, it will die. It will move back to the Board of Selectmen to reconsider pulling these funds from the contingency account.
Can somebody just explain, I guess I'm a little, what's the difference between pulling it from the revenue? Do we ever do that? I know you said for that one other time, but is this a common occurrence?
No.
We don't have many accounts that have revenue accounts. We don't have many budgets that pull in the kind of money that Steve pulls in. So we only have this option every once in a while. Anna has told you we do it. She is your finance director. She lives and dies by this budget, and she's explained that we've done it before.
So normally these building departments doesn't usually get a revenue, doesn't have a
Always
revenue
gets a
stream
revenue.
coming in?
Building gets a revenue all the time, but if we were talking about the planning department needing extra clerical for whatever reason, or wetlands, that's a good example. They are going to need help. They don't have revenue coming in. We couldn't do it this way. Steve has brought in a couple $100,000 more than we anticipated. Is that your number?
I
100,
don't,
it's about
Anna
100.
would have the exact
About
number.
$100,000
Well
more
over
than we
100.
budgeted for. So we're suggesting, Anna is suggesting that we do it this way.
We're also
Thank you.
we are also down almost $600,000 in revenues overall from one one fund balance report to the next in just a matter of 30 days. So I'm not saying no, let's not fund this. I'm calling into question whether it's even permissible to do it this way. And I would like to call our auditors to get an opinion on that, just as you call in the attorneys every time, Mark, to help you decide whether you should move budget referendum day forward.
When it comes to finance, I actually asked our finance director. That's what we pay her for.
So that's my position. I probably, if the motion is read, I will not approve it as it's submitted. The first selectman says we can't change it to the account because it has to be approved first by the Board of Selectmen. So I am in favor of sending it back to them to reconsider pulling it from the contingency account.
Well, we probably want to make sure that we're doing everything properly. So if we get it checked by the auditor, it's a double check. Not that I'm not believing Anna, but just to confirm that we don't want to do anything that's, financially incorrect. So I guess I would vote to send it back then to the Board of Selectmen, and then they can just send it back to us and we can, go through contingency or do it this way if they say that's okay.
Is there a way that, my concern about sending it back is it's going to add another month or two to the process, and we're at peak building permit time. I mean, the weather's getting warmer, and building permits are going to continue. Is there some way to get this through and then check afterwards and make any adjustments that we need to? I'm just concerned about holding up the staffing requests during his busy season.
The good news is it's this month, so the Board of Selectmen meet in a week. We'll just change things around. If that's what you're requesting and suggesting, you have about a dozen meetings coming up this month. There's plenty of time to be able to insert this. You've already got all the details. Steve probably doesn't need to come. You're just discussing semantics at this point, how to do it. So that's fine. It's your prerogative to do that. So, if we're meeting on Wednesday, you can have it on your agenda. If you're meeting Thursday or the following Monday, whenever you're meeting next after that.
I would feel better about that. I just hate to hold up this process for a month or so.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Peter. I think just, if we can do it as soon as possible to the Board of Selectmen and then back to the Board of Finance, because we're meeting like at least twice a week for the next, few weeks.
Yes,
So I think that's reasonable.
Yes, you are.
Rich Steele, did you want to
One
weigh
of the
in?
upsides of this schedule, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Rich, did you have
Yeah.
something to contribute?
Yeah, I think it's good that this can be done expeditiously and also cautiously. But one thing that I'm noting about the action needed on this request, I think there's a typo because the end of that first long sentence where everything's getting shifted around says 21,800 to revenue account. Shouldn't that be from, if we're going to take it from the revenue account, if that's approved by the auditors?
Where are you reading?
Okay, so the bottom of the page, move to approve special appropriation in the amount of 21,800 as follows to the following expenditure accounts: 3,000 to the clerical, 18,800 to the building official, and 21,800 to revenue account for the building permits. Isn't that the account that we're taking things from?
We're not taking it from the revenue account. What the motion is what the action is doing is actually increasing the revenue account projection and increasing the expenditure by the same
Okay.
amount. So that's why all three accounts are listed.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Just wasn't clear to me.
Okay, so I'll ask one final time, does any Board of Finance member wish to make a motion as it's submitted this evening?
I didn't think we were gonna rule on the motion. I thought
Well, I
that was
didn't
just-
I didn't hear from everybody.
Oh, okay.
So, I'm just waiting to see. If nobody wants to make the motion as it's submitted, we will, take no action on this item and send it back to the Board of Selectmen and revisit this at a later time. So it looks like John is not saying anything, and Ann Santora, I think you're good with this?
Yeah, I'm okay with having
Okay,
the Board of Selectmen look at this expeditiously because they have a meeting, next week, and hopefully using contingency, and then answering the question concerning the appropriateness of the transfer,
yes, and if I could also ask the Board of Selectmen to review the town charter to make sure that, when I read the charter, I read it as such that you cannot change the revenue side of the budget after it's gone to the town hall meeting or the annual budget meeting. So that's what I've read. I could be wrong, but I would ask that the Board of Selectmen reread the charter and advise us when they come back before us. Okay, thank you very much. With that, we are going to move on to the next
We have
item.
a meeting the same night as Board of Selectmen, so we can't be there, correct?
I didn't hear
That
that.
is true.
What was it?
I'm saying we have a Board of Finance meeting the same night the Board of Selectmen
Right.
meet, so we
You
can't.
won't do it that night. You won't be doing it that night. We'll be doing it that night.
Okay.
The next on your agenda, I believe, is the plan, the Niantic Fire Department. Am I correct? No, it isn't. Special appropriation transfer from contingency for the Niantic Fire Department. Yes, for overtime. Chief Barone is here. As you know, he's a volunteer. All this time he spends with you is on his own time. And Anna's here to explain any of the calculations. Jim, Anna?
Yeah, we're asking to move some money due to the fact, the biggest item was probably the fact that we had a guy out for 5 weeks, a night shift guy who his shift was then covered by other full-time firemen by their contract, all at overtime. We had a couple of storms. We may or may not weather that with the, a storm is a calculated risk. And then we had another guy out for, I think it was 2 weeks with a COVID issue. So we're asking for this money so that we make the end of the year in that account. We couldn't possibly plan for somebody being out for 5 weeks and his shifts being covered by overtime.
Does anybody have any questions for Chief Barone or Anna Johnson? Yes, John Birmingham.
Jim, is everybody back now, or when do you
Yes.
a
Yes.
full contingent?
No, everybody's back. We're at full staff and back where we should be. But this happened, there was money in there to cover it at that time. What we're trying to do is make the end of the year on that account, make the end of the fiscal year on that account. That's why we're asking for this money. Because we only had $5,000 or $6,000 left in the account, which would not make even payroll to the end of the year. In other words, their contract says they're entitled to overtime, 5 hours a week per guy times 4 guys. there wasn't enough money in there to cover that after the 5-week absence and the 2-week absence.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Would somebody like to make a motion?
Oh, well. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Ann.
Okay. I move to approve a special appropriation and transfer in the amount of $27,470 from account 0101-120-200-500, parentheses, contingency, to account 01-25-217-100-614 OT NFD.
There's a second.
Second.
Okay, Santoro has the second. All those in favor, please say aye. Raise your
Aye.
hand. Aye. Motion carries 600. Chief. With that, we're moving on to new business item C. Transfer from Police Department 216 to Dispatch Department overtime for $30,000.
Right. Chief Finkelstein mentioned it to you the other evening when we reviewed the dispatch budget. Very difficult to pin this one down, especially when you're only talking about a department with 5 full-timers, lots of part-timers, but 5 full-timers and 2 of them go out. And those shifts need to be covered. So both lieutenants are here this evening, Lieutenant Masick, Lieutenant Chasirsky, and they can fill in any of the blanks. But we're in need of funding for this.
And this is an interdepartmental transfer.
Right. Correct.
We're not pulling funds from any other source to cover this.
Correct.
So, does anybody have any questions for either lieutenant? If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve a transfer in the amount of $30,000 from police officers account 01-25-216-100-511 to dispatch overtime account 01-25-215-100-214 effective April 1st, 2021.
Thanks, Ann Santoro. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thanks, Rich Steele. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, unanimous, 600. Thank you.
And last on your, well, not last on your agenda, but D on your agenda, I'm going to let the lieutenants take over. They got to get some mic time in here. And they're putting all the detail together. This is for our mobile data terminals. That's the computers in the police cars, in the cruisers, and we're linking them all up together with the body cameras and all that, part of enhancing our police force. And lieutenants, it's all yours.
All right, so based on the agenda item that I've got in front of you there, essentially what's occurred is we're in need to update 8 of our mobile data terminals. Currently, all the patrol cars do have them in there. The replacement plan for that really comes in when we buy a new vehicle every year. So, you know, as we're only doing sometimes 1 car a year, you know, other years we're able to do 2. What's happening with that fleet of vehicles is the vehicles that are 10 years old now are so far behind technologically. There was never really a replacement plan in place. I think this is one of the things that, you know, was heavily discussed the other night in other meetings as far as, you know, looking to bring an IT person on just to get all of our things up to speed. What I have done is I have had STAR come through. I've had them look at the older MDT units that we do have. I've had them upgrade the ones that they were able to upgrade. And the other ones that are not upgradable are just basically, I think they're actually beyond end of life, but are still functioning. The issue we're running into is that these units are out of compliance with the state of Connecticut Collect System, as well as the FBI CGIS, which is the Criminal Justice Information Sharing. They require the Windows 10, and some of the internal components that's a little bit out of my realm is need to be upgraded as well. I've gone out. I've had 5 vendors come in. We've looked at all of the different different solicitations for quotes that I've received, and sometimes, I think I've been pretty good, and Camille, maybe you can back me up even on this. I've come to you plenty of times when I've gone out, research things. I make sure I do my due diligence when it comes to, especially, spending money. Although I am looking to take this out of our vehicle fund, that's the money that we're making, with the cars via the road jobs. We do know sometimes, that less is not more. We don't want to buy a product that is going to be inefficient to us, that does not have the capabilities for what we're looking for. Each one of these quotes I have run by our IT vendor to make sure that we are looking at the best product available. The one that we've chosen to go with is a company called Patrol PC. They are out of North Attleboro, Massachusetts. I've had them down to the department on several occasions, showing us some of their gear. We just didn't move forward with it before. Last year was definitely not a good year. So I didn't want to come in and throw it into the capital on top of everything else that was going on, especially so I've been putting this project off as long as possible. Patrol PC, one of the main reasons we're going with them is the durability of the product, and one of the main functions for us is the patrol aspect. So the officer, as they have this tablet in the vehicle, they're running somebody's license plate, they have the ability to reduce the time that they're at car stops. We have a lot of information that we have to report statistically to the state, such as race data, time of stop. So if I pull you over for a stop sign violation, it should theoretically only take, 5 to 10 minutes to complete that motor vehicle stop, from the second that I activate the lights till I greet you, to we exchange information, go back, write the infraction, and come back to you. This will reduce that by almost 5 minutes. These units have a scanner on the side of them. So if you looked at the back of your license recently, or any time, in the past, you'll see a barcode on there. Those barcodes will scan that license, the scanner will scan that barcode and extract that information from your license, put it immediately into that call that's been generated either by the dispatcher or by the officer making that stop, and backfill all that information. So greatly reducing the amount of time that the officer has his eyes off the road in front of him, and the potential, the person who's in the vehicle ahead of them. So that's a big officer safety issue. And again, I think statistically that'll cut down on the time that we are on the stop. So that'll make us look better as far as being compliant with a lot of the changing, evolving rules and laws that are being put into effect this year. One of the other things that we're looking at is, we have the body cams that are coming into effect. We have an installation date set for that, and Lieutenant Jezierski can probably chime in a little bit on this, but that's set for May 11th. I'm looking to get these guys. I have them scheduled tentatively, clearly based on approval of this project, for May 4th and 5th to come in and do the install. So these have to actually be in place prior to the next gen system going in there. I think at that point, I don't know, Dana, do you have anything you want to add to that portion?
No, other than the in-car cameras that we've purchased won't work. They won't be compatible if the cars don't have the Windows 10.
Okay.
So one of the things, and again, Mark just brought this up not too long ago, is again, as they had solicited department heads and looking at specific projects. Don't know, just throwing this out there to you guys. Maybe as we're taking this from our vehicle, police vehicle and equipment fees account, clearly that's going to drop that account a little bit. Maybe this is something we can look at as one of those smaller projects if we do get some funds come into the town as part of the IT infrastructure replacement. We could replace these funds at a later date, so we don't have any issue meeting the vehicle acquisition payments that Anna has to put out on an annual basis for the cruisers that we do drive.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions, Lieutenant. If we were to approve the 46,000, that leaves you with a balance of 75. So how many years does that cover the acquisition payments on the vehicle acquisition plan?
I'll let Anna answer that one.
Yeah, so this is kind of like the vehicle acquisition payments are on a rolling basis, meaning as we take new ones on, old ones are going off. And in addition to that, funds are constantly coming into the fund. So it's like it works going on a rolling basis.
Mhm. And we're still on the plan of acquiring about 2 new vehicles per year?
Yes.
Okay, so there's more than enough money left over to handle that
That's correct.
acquisition of a couple more cars coming up for the next
Yeah.
fiscal year.
And I also wanted to point out, Lieutenant Masick addressed the issue of America Rescue Plan Fund. So there is language in this motion such that in the event that funds, that resource becomes available, we, would consider it to reimburse this account.
I guess we'll find out on Friday what the 44 items are that are mandated from the police accountability bill, and I can imagine a lot of those ARP funds might help offsetting those expenses as well, correct? As
Maybe.
a possibility?
Maybe.
Yep, okay. That was really the only question I had, was concerning the balance that would be left over. Do any other board members have any questions for either lieutenant or the finance director? Yes, Ann Chikello.
Sure, so are you gonna put 8 in now, and then is it every year then you replace when you get the new vehicles? Is that what you're saying, or how does the replacement work, I guess?
Right. So that's actually a good question because we didn't really get into that part. So what that'll do now, so the past, couple of years, each of the new cars that we've received has a brand new tablet in them. We've gone from the Panasonic Toughbook. They basically price themselves out of that because they're looking to get out of that game, to the older ones. So these 8 new units will bring basically the fleet up to a good standard today. So I think it's actually going to put us into a better position in the replacement plan. So now at this point, our oldest models, if this goes through, will only be 3 years old. So as those get to, years 4 and 5, and they become, where we can't add to the RAM of it, or, if there's any other, internal upgrades that can be done, then those would be the first ones that start to come out and then be replaced as we move forward. So in theory, this year going forward, for the 2 vehicles that were discussed on Monday, those quotes would actually be reduced by the cost of, a new computer, because this part of it would be covering it.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? If there's no further questions, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to approve a special appropriation and use of $46,165.19 from CNRE Fund 32, account 32-60-120-100-003, police vehicles and equipment from fees, and forward to the Board of Finance for approval. This resolution is passed under the guidance of Executive Order 7S with no town meeting and being less than 1% of the current budget. If permissible, funds for this purchase will be reimbursed through the American Rescue Plan funds.
Thanks, Ann C. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Pete DeRosa. We have a first and a second. All those in favor, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Motion carries 600. Thank you, Lieutenant Masick and Jezierski.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. With that, we are moving into section E of our agenda, which will begin with the budget presentations. First up is Diane Vitigliano, the tax assessor, Department 102.
Good evening. Basically, my budget is very similar to what it usually is, with the bulk of it being under service contracts, which would account for the Vision Government Solutions. Oops, let me just back up here a minute. I moved papers and hit a button. At any rate, can you see me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm back. Sorry. Anyway, yes, so that's the field cards. That produces the field cards Vision Government Solutions. That's our CAMA system. And so that's a contract, and our admin program is also a service contract. And we also have the third item that makes up the significant portion of our budget of that category are our maps, the mapping company. It's going increasing $250 this year. Our number of map changes has gone up. We see that along with the building, we're having lot splits in order to accommodate those new buildings. And so there's been more map changes. So that did go up a small amount, $250. However, over the previous years, I reduced that 6% because I eliminated a second set of maps. I had eliminated Mylars. So, it's not surprising to me that they had to go up a little bit based on the number of map changes that have increased. And the miscellaneous supplies category has remained the same, despite the fact that there's been some increases in that. I'm no longer able to use the town of Waterford print shop, and they gave us phenomenal prices on our printing. And so we've had to have more expenses in that regard. I also have reached out and do some sharing of resources in this category with the town of Old Lyme for some pricing manuals that we use for special equipment, which was able to kind of offset some of those increases. And I also got another town, so now there's a total of 4 towns that are sharing in some necessary advertising that's expensive, which also kind of helped me keep that category the same without having to ask for an increase. And so that's about it in a nutshell. Do you have any questions?
Well, thank you for your efforts in trying to regionalize some of those services and saving the town money. It's much appreciated. Does anybody have any questions for Diane? Okay, seeing no questions, it's fairly straightforward, the budget. We can move on. Thank you, Diane.
Okay, so the next budget is the Board of Assessment Appeals. And there's, as you know, we're in a revaluation this year. So the amount of time that the board members are going to have to spend with all of the hearings has greatly increased. And they are, the board members can get paid. And so we have to accommodate for this in the budget, and that's what's responsible for the large increase in this budget for this year.
How is the reval going, Diane?
It's going very well. We have, Vision has been out in full force. They have been doing all the data entry from all of the data mailers that went out. We did have a tremendous response on the data mailers. I had put on the data mailer that any data mailer that wasn't returned would trigger an inspection. And so we've had tremendous response with that, of people reporting, changes to their house on the data mailer. They have been out doing inspections, and they have most of the town. They were also doing photographs, and most of the photographs are done. They're just starting sales analysis now and working with the sales file. We've had a very large number of sales. It's really been a dynamic market in that we're seeing very large increases in sale prices along the shoreline. So it's been very busy, and kind of exciting.
So what do you think the prospects are of exceeding the 2.14% increase in the grand list this year, based on these revals that are going on?
Yes, it's a little early to make projections, but we definitely have seen the market shift in some areas. With the last revaluation, what had happened was the residential market had gone down and the commercial market had gone up. And now we are seeing segments of the residential market increase significantly down by the shore. And even up north, we are seeing some increases.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Diane regarding the Board of Assessment Appeals budget? Okay, seeing no questions, we are all set with that. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Thanks for being here.
Next up, we have Department 103, the tax collector. I see John McCullough is here this evening.
Yes. Good evening.
John, you don't have much in your budget to discuss. We're keeping everything fairly flat, and as we have for many, many years in a row. You have 2 great assistants in there.
Yes.
And there's nothing that pops up. I don't know if there'd be any questions from the Board of Finance, or if you have anything to offer, John.
Well,
straightforward.
Other than the outsourcing of the tax bills, that's the one thing that probably stands out. But I think there's a real need for outsourcing these days, especially with the date of the referendum giving us a very small window of opportunity to get everything together and get them out on time.
Is that the reason for the increase to $5,100 for the outsourcing of the printing?
It's based upon their estimate, yes.
Yeah. So I think this came around last year, didn't it?
I believe it did, yes.
And it was not approved by the Board of Selectmen?
No, it was not.
It was not approved by you folks. I think we did include it, didn't we?
Yeah, the selectmen approved it, I believe, yes.
Yeah. And we did fund outsourcing. We got to a point that we did fund the outsourcing through another way. So we have been 2 or 3 years outsourcing our bills at this stage.
No, I think last year the Board of Selectmen, I think that you had cut this out, because I'm looking at a spreadsheet now that shows that the Board of Finance did not reduce particular line items. So I guess I'm just curious as to the reasoning why this is important this year and not in prior years.
We did it last year. So
yes,
whatever budget got cut out of, we put it back in, and we did outsource for the last 3 years.
Yes.
So how did you pay for it? Do you remember?
I think through.
Anna, do you have an answer on that?
Yeah, so we paid for it out of a combination of the tax department budget, and we also paid for a portion out of it, the posted portion out of the postage budget. And then there was another portion, I believe, that we had charged to the ad hoc account in the selectmen's budget, so that the bills could be outsourced.
Do any Board of Finance members have any questions with regard to the tax collector's budget? Okay. Yes, Ann Chikello.
Just a quick question. When you outsource the tax bills, what does that actually entail?
That entails the printing, the folding, stuffing, the envelopes, both envelopes, the return envelopes as well. And they take care of the postage, and they take care of it in a way that saves us some money. They send in bulk, and they also use a scanner on the envelopes themselves. The regular postage is 51 cents. Doing it this way brings the cost of 40 cents an envelope.
So do you give them like access to the computer so people, they know like what numbers to put on the bills, or?
Yes, we send them the file. We generate the file and send it to them.
Okay. Thank you.
John, do you envision yourself using any time from this new floater position in the first selectman's office then, since you are outsourcing this at a higher cost during your busy times?
With everything we have now, you probably noticed we don't have a summer help, and because we're able to handle a lot of things we hadn't been able to handle before. So I think we're well covered as far as staff, and I don't see the need for any additional help.
Okay, thank you very much.
It's just the long-term absences that he might have, and sometimes those are ill-timed. It might be during tax collection season, again, when we're taking hundreds of payments in the course of a day. And if one of his ladies or staffers are out, that would put a significant drain on the department, and that's the issue.
Mark, I really don't mean to be disrespectful, but the question was addressed to the tax collector. So you're more than
I'm the
welcome
first
to.
selectman, and the tax collector's department is under me. So
Right.
I think I have a right as ex officio to speak any time when it comes to budgeting.
Well, all right, if you don't mind being here till midnight,
Just
chat away.
clarifying your question.
Chat away. Are you through? Okay, I guess he's through. If there's no further questions for the tax collector, we can move on. Okay, let's move on to Department 104, Building.
Thank you.
Steve, I'll let you go.
I'm pretty sure we probably covered everything we really need to talk about a little earlier, but it's the same story. So there's a couple of increases for the additional staff that we asked for the current fiscal year, for the next fiscal year. And other than that, everything else is pretty much the same. Revenue drops slightly, though the workload doesn't drop at all. And that's mostly because we are a trailing indicator, so to speak. When the permits come in, that's when the project starts, and it may not finish for a year, 2 years after the permit comes in. So we're still doing a lot of the work years after the revenue occurs. So.
Yes, Ann.
Hi, just a quick question. How, like, if you have a house or a renovation, how many times do you have to go out to the property to inspect it?
Well, that's a tricky question. Depending on whether it's a new house or a renovation, that comes into play. There's statutorily there's mandated 7 different inspections. Sometimes they get broken up into multiple inspections, though. Depending on the quality of the contractor, there may or may not be multiple re-inspections. And typically, what's been happening with a lot of the renovations, homeowners, because they've had a lot of free time on their hands, are tackling these projects on their own. And those are probably the most time-consuming, because you're dealing with contractors that essentially really don't know what they're doing and really need a lot of hand-holding to get the finished product to be in a safe situation. So there's no hard and fast number. If it's something simple like a new electric service, that's 1 trip. A new house could be 15 or 20 trips. Remodeling somebody's basement, if the homeowner's doing it, that could be, 10 trips, depending on what's involved.
Now, is the building permits, is the cost based upon the size of the project, or what is it based upon?
The cost
building
is
permit fees.
the permit fees, and I'm glad you brought that up. The general answer is they're based on the value of the finished product.
Okay.
So as prices have gone up for materials in the last several months by almost 30%, those values have also gone up. In the case of new construction, decks, pools, certain other items, finished basements, we operate on a square foot basis, and then we apply a factor to that to come up with a value. So those values currently are understated from the actual real world costs, but they are consistent across time. So that, in other words, just because a guy starts his house 2 or 3 months later, the permit fee doesn't really necessarily need to go up. Our functions hasn't changed costs any. So that would, we spread it out so that it's actually fair across time, regardless of when you apply the permit. You're basically paying by a square foot for new construction. Renovations are a little bit trickier. Somebody coming in to put a new kitchen in, there's no square foot price for that. That's an actual cost value, and those prices have gone up. So we've reaped additional revenues for that. This time last year, before COVID hit, I did have a proposal to actually change our fee structures, and for a variety of different reasons. One is to raise additional revenue and bring us more in line with some of the local towns. Some of the other towns were significantly lower than they are. We haven't changed our permit fee structure in many years. And we want to take into account some things that people just don't get permits for because it's a $250, $300 project. They don't want to pay a $50 permit fee. And most of the time it's something like a hot water maker, hot water heater. That's a $250, $300 project for somebody. If it's a homeowner doing it, it's the cost of the heater, right? And for them to come in and get a $50 permit, they just skip getting the permit. Now that becomes a crisis 3 years later when they go to sell the house and they don't have a permit for that hot water heater, and it slows the closings down, it slows everything down, and then it becomes a dramatic problem. So we'd like to make that a more reasonable number that really just reflects the cost of the one trip it's going to take us out there to do that. There's not a lot of plan review involved, but it's more about keeping everything correct. And making those numbers a little bit more reasonable for those kinds of things. I do plan on working on that, but with everything else going on, it's been kind of put on the back burner. So, but that's the intention going forward, is to adjust those figures to be more fair.
I would also think if you lowered them too, people might be more apt to come in, and it might prevent problems.
Well, that's the point. That's the point.
Yeah.
For $10, they'll come get the permit. For $50, they say skip it.
Yeah.
Right? They'll take their chances, right? And
Yeah.
That's part of that problem. So for those types of items, those low cost items that typically only going to take one trip and a relatively quick review process, we want to get those numbers down, because right now we have a minimum permit fee of $50. So no matter what you do, it's $50 right now. So.
And is that can the permits be filled out like online and just be submitted electronically, or is it,
we have the forms themselves are online, and you can download them and print them, and you can submit them electronically. The payment, we're still working through a little bit of a process as far as taking credit cards, but most people drop off checks or they can mail a check. Most of the solar companies, and there's like 5 or 6 of them working in town every week, they mail them in. They're in California. They're just so used to filling them out, mailing them in. They've got it down to a science. So.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Any other questions for Steve White?
If I may. So I didn't do my homework very well. So we approved a staffing increase to respond to the high demand for permits, and that's included in this budget moving forward. Is that correct? Is that
for the inspectors? Yes.
Okay.
For the clerical, the selectmen chose to cut it back a little bit.
Okay.
And it's more than we have this current fiscal year, but less than what we've asked for going forward this fiscal year.
So-
If I didn't confuse matters too much. Because I'm hoping that we can spend the rest of this fiscal year to play some catch up. And then the additional hours will go forward. We'll see how the year goes. I mean, if things slow down, the need will slow down, and we're not just going to burn hours. But if it picks up and gets even crazier, well, we'll be back to talk to you again at some point. But
Okay, thank you.
Yes, John.
I just had a clarification on an item. On, under services on 200, on building permit software, the item code is 217. You go to the second page, it's 216. Which one is it?
I believe 216 is longevity. Oh, no, I'm sorry. 217, I believe, is the correct one, but Anna would.
See what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I see it. I don't have the answer. That's kind of a pre-filled out spreadsheet that I work with. So let me see if I can see the current fiscal year and maybe get you an answer.
216.
That would have been my guess.
It was 216.
Yes.
Yeah, last year it was 216.
Did you want to make a comment, Rich? I saw you had your hand up.
Yes. Just when Mr. Wade made a statement about for the admin clerical line that the Board of Selectmen reduced it, but it looks like at least what we've got in our budget books is the department head requested 82,456 and Board of Selectmen proposed 84,318. So should that be reversed? Or are those accurate numbers? Line 311, 2022 department head requested, 2022 Board of Selectmen proposed.
I gotta believe those got transposed.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, because they cut back 4 hours a week on that admin position. It's still increasing at 4 hours, but I had asked for 8 hours additional. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, are we all set on the Department 104? Okay. Okay, thanks, Steve. Let's move on to Department 106, Human Resources.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, I'm here to tell you that the Human Resources budget remains flat with the exception of salary increase. If there are any questions.
Is the increase a result of increase in hours or the wage?
Wage.
So is there a reason why this increase is so large relative to all the other raises?
Because you increased her hours last year. Is that right, Anna? This is kind of catching up to what was increased last year during the mid-year increase, and we're maintaining those hours.
Right, so if you look at the budget document, the adopted budget was the 48,903, and the amended budget is 52,479. So the 12.54 is, looking at the original adopted budget.
From the adopted budget. Okay, so what is the increase just from? Is it still the 2.25 like everybody else?
Yep.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions on this department? Okay, moving right along, let's move on to Department 107, the Town Clerk. I see Karen Galbo is with us this evening. Hello.
Hi, everyone. It's not many changes in my budget. Longevity went up for the contract and salaries increased. And that was it. I looked over some revenues and conveyance tax. The real estate's been booming, so conveyance tax is way above. And that's pretty much it. I want to just comment that I know you brought up the floater position earlier. And we are one of the departments that would greatly benefit from that. We happen to be one of the only offices, other than the first selectman's office, we only have 2 people. It's myself and my assistant. If I'm on vacation and my assistant has an emergency and she would have to leave, or vice versa, we would have to close our office. And if I am out, my assistant has to work through lunch. She gets paid for that, so she gets paid extra if I'm out. So we would also be using them extensively during dog license season, elections, some referendums, that kind of thing. So we are one of the departments that would greatly benefit from it. And I just wanted to say that. And that's pretty much it for me.
Okay. No, I appreciate that input. Would you say that there's a better way to handle it than relying on a floater position?
Oh, geez, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying I need a permanent person, so I wouldn't suggest that. I mean, I think a floater would be great. I think it would be great to have a person that was trained in all offices for emergencies, if somebody was out for surgery or something like that. I mean, I think it's a win-win in that regard. I think also if a position opened up within the town, well, geez, we have a person already who's already trained to go right in. It would be seamless. Could be seamless, if they were hired for it, that kind of thing. So, I mean, I think it's a win-win, but that's just my opinion.
Okay. So have you used temporary personnel in the past?
Yes.
And how did that work out?
At the election last year, we were lucky enough to, a woman who retired from the Waterford Town Clerk's office moved to East Lyme. So she was able to help out at election season. And that was great. That was great. She came in every afternoon for at least a month and helped us with absentee ballots. It was great. So, yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Karen? All right. Seeing no questions, we'll move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on
Thanks,
to
Karen.
Department
Thanks.
10 Health.
Andy, you usually take this, right? Health insurance?
Ledgelight Health.
That's Ledgelight Health District.
Oh yeah, not general government. That's coming up though, so be prepared. Ledgelight Health did have an increase in their fees, I believe this year. Am I right, Anna? Was this the year they bumped their rates up?
It did go up this year.
Did go up. You'll see that in your narrative. It's not a significant increase at all. Was it 20 cents a person? Something like that, 22 cents a person. And based on our population, which includes, by the way, the prison population. But of course, that's down a little bit. But that's it right there. They do remarkable work for us, and we've never leaned on them harder, as you can well imagine. During COVID, they were, anytime myself or Becky or HR person or Joe Brigar or Anna picked up the phone and called, the phone was answered. Remarkably, with 22 towns, the phone was answered every time we called, and we got answers. This was a very difficult year, and nobody knew what to do from one minute to another. And Ledgelight has remained a valuable resource, and the town is better served than when we've had our own health department, our own sanitarian as an employee 15 years ago. So my hat's off to them. They do great work.
Any questions from the board? Okay. Seeing no questions, we can move on to Department 105, the town engineer.
Town engineer's on vacation this week. It is.
I'm taking care of that.
Oh, you got it. Joe, you can take it.
Yeah.
Oh, means.
I mean, the town engineering budget's pretty straightforward every year. There's, we have a town engineer. We have a civil engineer that does all kinds of stuff for us, as far as putting together plans, stuff together, all the projects that we do, GIS stuff, all kinds of stuff. The administrative assistant is 75% of one of the assistants out here is charged to the town. The other 25% is of that person's charged to water. And we have the stormwater management. Everything else in here hasn't changed in the past years. All the MS4 DEP stormwater permit requirements is in that line for stormwater management. And then we have smaller lines for dues and organizations, transportation allowance, and miscellaneous supplies. So if you have any questions, I can answer them for you.
Any questions for Joe regarding Department 105?
Yeah, I have a dumb question. What is stormwater management?
It's the town is required to have a permit with the Connecticut DEP for our stormwater system. All the catch basins in town, I believe there's like over 2,000 of them.
Right.
And we're required to do sampling, all kinds of stuff that we're supposed to be doing, and that the sampling costs keep going up and up. There's actually another line item on the highway budget that also helps with the sampling cost, but that's what it is for the being in compliance with the DEP permits for the MS4 permit.
Okay, thank you. I'm just.
Yep.
Any further questions? Okay, seeing none, we can move on. Thank you, Joe. I think the next one is yours as well.
Right. Yep. The next two.
113, Department.
Yeah, and I got an asterisk. I'd like if it's the pleasure of the board to go through this operating for maintenance, town buildings, and then public works, and then hit my capital items as well, unless you want to have me do the capital items for each. It's however you like.
We'll let you walk us through it, whatever you think makes the most sense.
Okay, I'll do all the operating budgets of Department 113 and 317, and then I'll do the capital items. So, right from the get-go, in maintenance to town buildings, the biggest thing of this budget, because I never show budgets that come in at 10, 11, 12%, is the addition of taking on the public safety building. Now, bear in mind, in the present budget year, right now, the one we're in, there was $58,000 set aside in contingency for the public safety building. Now, we haven't had to dip into it anyways, but it was set aside because we didn't know what time of the year. So that money was put in there for that reason. So all the same numbers and the same reasons that I showed last year in the contingency are now being shifted into this budget. So it's showing, items like building maintenance, service contracts, heating, electricity, and stuff like that. So, but one of the big line items is the custodian line. I was hoping if I could share my screen, I could just go over quickly kind of what we're doing with that. I shared it the other night, so I'm hoping I could do it again here.
Yes, you can.
So I think the board has this package. It's basically just showing you of the detail that I've been into as far as how we're going to cover the, because you know, someone from afar could look and say, well, we have a police station and we have a public safety building up by in Flanders on 171 Boston Post Road. So why do we need any more staff? But this is just showing, and I won't get too much into it, but right now we have one full-time buildings and grounds supervisor that does all the building maintenance, coordinates the custodians, does a lot of the projects, does any of the maintenance stuff, and then supervises the staff. And then I have one full-time staff that covers the town hall and covers probate and then goes over to the police building. But as you can see right here in this line, we're allocating 4.5 hours a week to the current police station. That's not enough. That's not enough for the existing building, and it certainly is not going to cut it for going into the next building. So that's kind of one of the areas to look at. The community center, I know it's been kind of slower because of COVID, but when that building, you know, when everything's opening up and as it's starting to do now, that building's kicking. So we have a daytime person and a nighttime person. Those people at the community center actually they are custodians, but they spend a lot of their time setting up, taking down, you know, there's so many people coming, organizations coming into that room of opening up doors, doing all kinds of stuff. So it's more than even custodians work as far as trying to get people in and out of that building. But that right now, my daytime person also goes over to dispatch, and we have very little coverage. Right now, I don't even have this extra coverage right now to go over to the field service building, which I have almost over 30 people over in that building. So it's been a challenge to COVID. So rolling to the next stage, what I'm proposing to add right now in our current budget, we had an 11-year, it's right here, a custodian part-time. That person actually isn't with us right now, so we don't even have that. But I'm looking, because it's very hard to hire someone for 10 hours a week. It's just, people aren't available for that. But I'm looking to gear up to go from an 11-hour a week part-time position to another full-time position, and that will basically pick up the new public safety building for 6.5 hours a day. And because it's so close to the FSB, the field service building, which is over in Capitol Drive over in Colton Road, so that person would share the time there. So this basically budget is adding a full-time position, which as it is, I don't even know what, like the community center is 33,000 square feet. The town hall is 18,000 square feet. I understand that this new building is 30,000 square feet, but it's only on the downstairs. But it's a 24/7. It's got showers. It's got locker rooms. It's got a weight room. It's got all kinds of stuff that people are using a heck of a lot more than a town hall. So, if anything, I'm hoping that this is enough. And the Board of Selectmen in their review asked me if it was enough, and I said I'm hoping it is, but we might have to ask for more help in the custodian. But that's what we're presenting right now, is to make sure this is how I'm presenting to cover the time. So that's the custodians. If you go down our line items, service contractors, I have a detailed breakdown of every building. So with each building, there's all the HVAC service contracts. There's the security contracts. There's pest control. There's fire alarm inspections. There's sprinkler inspections. Every single building is detailed of what those costs are. And because we're taking on a bigger building, I'm lining up a service contract with that. That's showing a $3,000 increase. The building maintenance line, I'm proposing to add another $5,000 to take on that building, because it's you're first taking over a building, you don't really know what the issues are. You have to make sure that you have enough to maintain it. The fire protection line is something that I wear two hats, because I also run the water and sewer department, and the Water and Sewer Commission have been looking for a 10% increase in that fire protection line for the last bunch of years, because the fire protection line used to be $75,000. The town used to pay the water department about $75,000 about 20 years ago, and that got cut to 15 a long time ago. And it's a topic of a discussion at our Water and Sewer Commissions a lot about, well, why can't we just bring it right up to 77, which would kind of cripple my other budget, which is building maintenance. So we've kind of been working of this 10% increase. That's going to hit a point at some point in the next few years, and if the Board of Finance even approves this amount, this extra amount, it's going to hit a point where that increase is going to have to stop because they're going to get back up to the levels they had back 15 years ago. The telephone custodial supplies line, obviously we have a new building. We're going to have the new vacuums and all the different things for that. So that's covering the bringing on the new building. The electricity, I took a detailed analysis of 4 years of all the buildings we had. I took a provision of how much we were, because obviously the existing PD is going to go to next to nothing. It's going to go down significantly. We're still going to have some equipment in the existing dispatch, so we're going to have to carry some electricity costs. But then we have a new building that's coming on that I don't know exactly how much it's going to be for electricity, so I guesstimated a reasonable amount. So that 260, I'm pretty comfortable that by putting that number together, that's an appropriate number. And the last item is the heating and oil, and I would even think that number would have been higher, but we've done extremely well. We've secured some fixed propane contracts for the last few years, and we have one going forward. Like right now, this winter, we paid $1.04 for propane. If any of you have propane at your house, I do. I was paying twice that, so that was a phenomenal price. Next year, we're locked in for $1.11. So that's big. And then that building, the new public safety building, is going to be heated on propane. So that's pretty significant that we have that contract in place. So if you take out the $58,000 that was really set inside of this current year's budget for this building going forward, and this budget is going up $81,000, the building maintenance budget isn't increasing as much as it appears, because now the money is being pulled from the contingency to where it should be in the building maintenance budget. So with that, if you have any questions, I'd like to answer them for you.
I have one.
Yes, John?
Sure. Joe, under 216, the service contracts, I was reading through
Yep.
where it says fire and regular. All the buildings that were left out, I mean, all the buildings that were listed, there was one left out, maybe they rented their own service contract, is Brookside. Sam Smith. They listed, not Sam Smith, Smith Harris.
Brookside Farm.
Yeah.
What provision of Brookside Farm are you talking about? Because they fund their own budget. I don't pay. I think I might. I have to look, but I think there's something in there for pest control. That's it.
That's what I'm asking. Are they under their own service contract like the Lee House?
I believe they are.
Okay. I thought that might be the case, but
Yeah, the reason it is Samuel Smith House, and that is correct, is that because of the age, that has a fire alarms monitoring in it. But the Brookside Farm, aka Smith Harris House, is on their own. They pay their own costs.
Yeah. Okay. I thought so, but I just wanted to check.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions for Joe on Department 113? Okay. Then why don't we move on to 317 Public Works, Joe?
Sure. All right. 317 Operating Highway Sanitation. Be going through the 100 lines, personal services. The reason no one's getting a 4.8% raise. If you recall, last year, 3 quarters, I have 24 employees in the highway department. The 24th employee was cut by 3 quarters. So last year, there was about a $37,000 cut to my budget for that line item. So it only funded a quarter a year. And I'm proposing to bring that full, as a full year position. That's why it brings it up to a 4.7, a 4.8 instead of the 2.2% general wage increases that were approved with the union. everything else, there's just a small reduction. We've had a lot of retirements in highway and an infusion of a bunch of newer employees into the department. So that's why the longevity lines went down. The next one of kind of significance, if you want to call it, is the SCARA tipping fees. It's in the 210 services, 295. It went down $29,000. The reason for that, well, first of all, it's hard to gauge. That's every single person sticking their garbage out the street. You have no idea what that end number is going to be at the end of the year. It's always a little bit of a variable, but we've been pretty close in pegging it. The big issue why that went down is that, and I'm the vice president of SCARA. One of the things that happened at SCARA is they chose to change. You'll see it in a revenue line later. There's a transportation subsidy that's disappearing. So what they're doing now is, and this was really what it was meant for. Instead of transportation subsidy being a revenue to the town, it's now being credited as a cost. So if I have just for example, if I have a $30,000 bill for refuse for that month, then they take out the $2,500 for the transportation subsidy right out of my line, and that's why it's going down. So I'm being completely transparent that that line's going down, but I'm losing money in the revenue. So just, you know, it's all relative to the big picture. So everyone knows what's going on. The reason also that the transportation subsidy used to be $40,000 and now this line goes down to $29,000 is that the formula they use for a transportation subsidy that they created in the 1980s by some 40-page calculation that made no sense, they recalculated that, and East Lyme is now getting less money because we were actually getting an inflated amount than the other towns were for all these years, and that's been kind of rectified. So that's why that it went from 40 to 29 essentially. Bulky waste is I pushed it up $5,000. I mean, if you've been up at our transfer station, our guys do a phenomenal job up there. If anything, revenue-wise, revenue is chugging at that place, and it really, that's a good thing for the town because that brings in money. But revenue is part of it. Revenue is people dumping all their stuff in the bulky waste. So the revenue is going up. And I heard the conversation before about taking, you know, that the building official had more revenue, but you were trying to take expense, whatever that whole thing is. I'm getting a lot more revenue, but when that revenue comes, my expenses are more because more people. I have Willie Waste is picking up a container every day, maybe twice a day. And I mean, we're the hot spot if you want to go to dump stuff, but that comes at a cost, so I had to increase that amount. Fleet maintenance, I jumping 10,000, but the key thing for you to look at is the 2020 actual expense. I've been averaging anywhere from 225 to 235 every year, and I usually have to take that from another line item to make it up because our garbage trucks, some of the, you know, we have 2 older garbage trucks that they're just breaking down a lot, and those things are expensive to things. So I try now to put an extra 10,000 now in the fleet maintenance coming forward, so that I'm not having to change that mid-year. All the materials lines are essentially the same. Operating expense lines are the same. I certainly, when we get to questions, can answer anything for you, but I just assume the same thing. I mean, all the things we need in there. Fleet fuel is a big home run for us here. I was able to lock in all the fuel, not only for highway, sanitation, police, but also for the Board of Ed and for the fire departments. So we did that in December when all the prices were low. So we locked in at unleaded at $1.59 and diesel at $1.58, which was a 18 and a 24% decrease in the current year. So that was a good timing to do that. And since the prices have gone up, so if we waited, that wouldn't have been good. And then the last item of note that I want to throw out there is streetlights. Now, granted, it is a 0% increase, but I do say for those that have been on the board for a while, this is year 6, and at some point in time in the fiscal year 23-24, this line is going to drop down significantly. When we did this streetlight upgrade, we basically had to buy out the lights from CLMP Eversource for $430,000, and then we went around the town and changed all the lights to LEDs. And now I manage all the lights internally. Someone has a light out, you email Public Works, it comes to me. I go out there, check it, I put it on a list. We went out to bid for a local electrical contractor. They fix them. So, this is year 6, year 7 will be the next year. And then after that, that line is going to drop by $145,000. because it will be finishing off paying for the lights. So that's just at the time when some of these other costs are really kicking in, that line's going to come down. So I'm reminding you guys of that because that's going to be a nice savings coming forward. So that's where we're at. And then there is a little block for revenues. One of the revenues I liked, and I mentioned it, that I'd like you to look at is landfill deposits. You know, through the work of working with the Board of Selectmen, I've revisited whenever Willie Waste and any of these other vendors, the hauling costs and the tip fees keep going up. Well, in the past, we never had those fees go up, so I keep having the fees go up associated with all the increases. So, you know, we're taking in almost $20,000 a month, and I'm projecting comfortably an $18,000 increase in revenue. I mean, we have months where now we're making $25,000 a month in there. And that's everything is credit cards, so that there's no cash having to worry about. It all goes right in our account instead of having to have someone with a sack of change come into town hall and having to count out, you know, $3,000 a day or something. So it, from a cost controls, from a process, it's the better way to do it. So that's my operating budget. I'd certainly like to answer any questions you have, and then I'll get into the capital items.
Okay, who has questions for Joe?
I do.
Okay, Ann.
Hi, Joe.
Hi.
First, I just want to say thanks so much for all your work and for your foresight, you know, thinking about, you know, locking in these prices because, yeah, fuel prices are definitely going up, among other things. And I like the comprehensiveness of your narrative. I have to tell you, you get a gold star for that. But in any event, I do have a question. I think it's in the Public Works Department 317, the line 200-239 about tree maintenance. And just wondering, you know, I guess the town's been working to try to remove blighted trees, diseased trees. So what's happening, and I know we have many trees in town, but what happens when we have, I'll call them holes, you know, where there's a tree that's of significant age, it's diseased, it's taken down. As tree warden, do you have a plan going forward for replacing some of those? It's just something I don't happen to see, but I'm just wondering, you know, from the perspective of habitat plus aesthetics, are we replacing any of these larger trees that need to come down because of gypsy moth eating or whatever?
Well, I mean, the way I look at it is you got to walk before you run. I mean, we were first catching up with there's so many dead trees between all the dead ash trees and all the oaks. So I wasn't having the luxury at first of even looking at trying to replace the trees, but I think that's something, I don't have a specific plan right now, but as a tree warden, but we have to find out where the appropriate place to put them, because sometimes it's not to put them right back where they were. It's just finding another portion of town where you can parks and stuff like that you can add to. So it's not, I mean, that can be incorporated into this numbers, because one of the things I've been doing is being very friendly with Eversource, because they probably cut down about $40,000 worth of trees from me this year by being polite and asking nicely. So they've taken out trees on, I mean, if you've seen around town, Riverview, there's one road, Dean Road, when we closed the road, all that was paid by Eversource. And I would, whenever I meet with the residents, I say, please work with them because we're not paying for it. I mean, you know, you're paying for it in your rates, but our tax dollars are not paying for it. It's being paid out of people's rates. So I would like to try to do a tree planting program. That's something that, and I'll talk to other towns of how they're doing that kind of program. But in the meantime, there's so many dead trees in town and so many dead branches, and I get calls all the time, and I log them all in. I inspect them. I go out there. I get them lined up. I put them in a package of 5 or 10 locations, and then we knock them out. You know, you need to have traffic control. That money is definitely well spent for the town, because everyone, between drainage and paving, trees are right next to it. Is the biggest call we get in here. Is you know, I get calls all the time and emails. They just email us about, you know, they're concerned about a tree, and we try, you know, if a tree is like, you know, 3/4 away on the right of way and 1/4 on the person's property, you try to do the right thing and you try to remove the tree.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. I just wondering about that, yeah, future plan, but
Yeah.
definitely we have many dead trees that, are coming down in part or in whole during storms. No question about that. So, and that's obviously your priority. But, okay, thanks. That's all I have for now.
Any other questions for Joe? Yes, Sam?
Joe, just a quick question. Under 220 services vehicle maintenance, you have 221 fleet maintenance. How many vehicles are you maintaining?
Oh, that's a great question. I wish I had the answer for it. It's probably about 130.
130, okay.
Well, okay, put it this way. We service all the highway vehicles and sanitation. We service all the Board of Ed vehicles. We service the police vehicles, water and sewer vehicles. We certainly help the fire departments when we can with their service. If you add up all those vehicles and trailers and stuff like that, I'd say it's in the 120, 130 range. I know we have 120 plates, so right there. So maybe it's 140. The EL plates we have from 1 to 120.
And do you do like some servicing of the vehicles, like in-house?
Oh, everything is done in-house.
It is, okay.
We service everything. That's why the 225 is all just for parts. I mean, we have a fantastic mechanic group, and they service everything, and then then you got to take out all the chainsaws and all. I mean, the plows. I mean, there's so much equipment that these guys are doing on a daily basis. We have 3 guys that are doing it, so it's pretty amazing what they do.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Okay, Joe, why don't you walk us through Department 724 as it relates to your area and the CIP?
All right, thank you. Yep. So in 724, there's 3 line items on in the CNRE. The first one is town projects, and I'm looking to put $10,000 in that, and the balance is $46,000. The community center is coming up. Actually, I think it already had its 30th anniversary, but that building is that roof is going to be needed to be done in the foreseeable future. So that 10,000 is very highly recommended to keep putting in that CNRE bucket to get ready for that project. And then the HVAC replacement of 15,000. There's $17,000 in the existing account. When any of these HVAC units go down in any of these facilities, it's usually anywhere, like we just replaced the ductless split at the dispatch building because we're still gonna have equipment up there, and it was like $8,000. These things are anywhere from 7,000 to 20,000. So I never come back and ask for more money for those things, and the reason is because that money is in that account. So those are the 2 items. I think the only other one on building maintenance was townwide parking lot repairs for $60,000. That was a low SIP item. So low SIP we got to keep track of, and we get the low SIP money coming in. What I was looking at, Brydebrook is getting in rough shape. Nothing's been done with it. Brydebrook Park, the parking lot down there. And I was also looking at McCook's, but also the area heading to Cheney Park, not the Cheney Park parking lot itself, but the access road to it, the old Route 156. I need to do some work on that, and that's kind of a parking area now, or a parking access. It's because it's not really considered a road. It's not on the town road list. So that's what I have in building maintenance, and then on public works. If I can share my screen again, I have 2 items. I have the pavement. I'm asking for $850,000 for the roads. Let me see here. As I've done in the past, I have a detailed list. If you can see it, I just shared my screen. This is this current year. We're doing all this work coming forward. We're gearing up for Whistletown Road, Beaverbrook, Upper Pat, Salem Turnpike, Scott Road, North Brydebrook. That's all going to be happening in the next month or 2. But these are all the new roads for 21-22. These are all the Cape Seal roads that we've been doing in the neighborhoods. Last year, if you recall, we cut $350,000 from the pavement. I put in an $850,000 request. It got knocked down to 500. And what we knocked out was Dean Road and Grassy Hill. So what do I get calls about? Dean Road and Grassy Hill. And Dean Road's a pretty busy road in town, and it's a connector road, and it's pretty narrow in spots. It needs a lot of work. I mean, part of this is $330,000 for Dean Road. And then there's a few subdivisions off of that, Whitney Lane, Circle, and Winchester. Those roads are abominable. They're completely beat up. They have to be ground up. So this is my list of the roads. This is actually the list of the roads for next year, about 223. That amount comes to $1,040,000. I always set aside money for crack sealing. It's money well spent. Full depth patch repair. I put $50,000 in here for sidewalks. Just to give us flexibility, if sidewalk sections need to be repaired, and that all totals up to 1.19. So why am I asking for 850? The other amount is the town aid road. So if you add up town aid road plus my 850, these two match. So that's my paving plan. And I also have my vehicle acquisition plan right here. So this is my 10-year vehicle acquisition plan for Public Works, but obviously what we're really talking about is the fiscal year 21-22. So that's what right here is. What I'm proposing is we have 5 frontline garbage trucks. We have 3 that are on the road every day and 2 that are spares. The 2 spares are about 11, 12 years old, and those trucks are constant maintenance. They're constantly, this truck 74 has had it. It's costing a lot of money to keep it going, so we need to replace it. When we replace a truck, we get rid of the old spare, and then one of the frontline trucks makes it become the spare, because for 2 reasons. One, because it always gives a backup truck, because it's life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and also picking up garbage. I found out during COVID, you got to keep picking up garbage, and so we got to keep those trucks on the road every day. And also it allows you some flexibility, especially on those. We have all the holidays, we do double collection. So on those double collection days, we put all 5 trucks out on the road. So that garbage truck right here, $276 I'm asking for. This is the price that we got from state bid contracting, then put in a radio minus the trade. So that's where I came up with the 276 number. And then the dump truck is this. We had some discussions about this last year, and at the end we kind of cut this one out, and if you recall, and replaced a pickup truck instead that was about 15 years old. But this dump truck is one of our mid-size. This is an all year. This thing is used. It's the mid-size truck, and with COVID, all these costs for these trucks are going up. But the truck itself is $162,806. Town radio, it needs a plow. $168,506 minus the trade is $153, so $153,500. So that's those are the 2 items. So they total $429,550, $429,500, which is what Anna's got in the capital plan.
Okay.
So those are my items.
Yes, Ann Santoro, you have a question?
Yes, thanks, Camille. Joe, I don't believe we have those last slides in our information packets, which give us the detail, of the some of the equipment and vehicles that are going to be sought to be purchased. So could you provide those? Just that last. The road repairs. I didn't recall having that in my packet, or the vehicle detail with a garbage truck, etc.
All I have to hit is send. It's on my computer because I just showed it to you. So all I have to do is hit it to Anna, and she can get it to you guys.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure if I was missing something, but that's fine. Yeah, thanks. And it's good information. Thanks.
There was one other item on the Public Works on this, because I noticed I didn't want to miss anything. MSW recycling carts, it's what's listed as 15,000. I mean, we got so many people. I mean, our can requests are up like 3 times right now. Everyone seems to love to get their new can, and so we were out of cans only about a month ago, and it's really hard to get new ones because it's hard to supply. So that 15,000, it costs us $90 to purchase a can. We sell them for 110. I'm actually considering going in front of the Board of Finance. I'm strongly considering, I'd like to do it, is and double the cost of a second can. So if you buy one can, it's 110. And if you buy a second garbage can, not recycling, it's 220. Because why should the town be subsidizing that you're using twice the amount of trash? Is what's happening right now is people buying 2 cans, 3 cans, and they're just clearing out their basement because it's a lot. Because once you buy the can, it's free. Well, it's not free. The rest of the town's paying for your trash. So it's going against everything that SCARE talks about is pay as you throw and trying to reduce trash. I'd like to, and I'm going to be going for the Board of Selectmen to try to raise the cost. And the other thing is all the businesses in town have picked up on it and are getting rid of their dumpsters, and they're just buying a can, one-time fee, and then all of a sudden now it's free trash. They just got to roll it out. So I got to find a way to kind of make up some revenue so that it's just not going to be the town's cost to bear. Any other questions?
Okay, doesn't look like there's any other questions, Joe.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll move on to, let me see, we have 1, 2, I think there's 4 more departments, and I think that we can just push through and maybe finish up by 9, so I won't call a break if that's okay with the board. We'll just push on. Sound good? Okay. If you have to leave, just turn your video off and come on back when you can. Okay, so Department 114, General Government and Miscellaneous.
Right. So the bottom line is the bottom line. Some costs have gone up and down. Workman's comp, FICA, disability insurance, health insurance is always it's a whole lot better than we were doing it ourselves, that's for sure. But you'll see those increases in the top section. In the bottom section are the legal bills. We've moved some money around, and I'll point to the very bottom line, that new line, the PS Police Accreditation. It's estimated to cost $25,000, but we decided to spread that over 2 fiscal years. We'll be required to pay them $12,500 to start the process, and that will also be on your next year's budget as well. We've moved some money around. Keep in mind that next year, when we get to January, this coming January, all 4 of the town's unions, union contracts will be up for negotiation, and that generally takes a whole lot of labor for at least a couple of them, and generally 2 go smooth and 2 take a little bit of time, especially the big one. We dropped down the general government legal bill, and that's I'm just trying to point out the highlights. It's not very sexy. It is what it is. It's the cost of running a town and the legal and the insurance that is all behind it.
Any questions for the first selectman? Ann Chikello?
Hi, Mark. I was just wondering regarding the legal ads, if you know, it says it's for $25,000. Is there, would that go down just because do you still have to put everything in the newspaper according to like executive orders?
Or point to the legal ads, 25,000.
Yeah.
It is a state statute requirement that we put all these ads in. There is legislation that we could cut that out and put it on our website, or just put one line in the newspaper saying refer to the website or come to the clerk's office and pick up a copy of the new ordinance. But right now, the state statute, as you probably know, given your profession, I know you don't specialize in this, but we must print everything in the newspaper still.
Okay.
So, and keep in mind, and Anna, correct me if I'm wrong, zoning, planning, all the departments fall under this, right? Am I right, Anna?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, and when we get an application for a public hearing and zoning, and those can be quite extensive, and that's and then the other trouble is we just don't know what's coming at us. It's not something that we can manage and plan for. We can just guess based on past experience.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Good question.
Mark, can you explain the rationale for putting the police accreditation in this department versus the police budget?
It's legal. We have zoning in this budget. We have, all the, and this happened, I'm going to say 15 years ago, 10 years ago anyway, that all the legal bills kind of came under general government miscellaneous benefits instead of each department running their own legal budget as part of their department. So police accreditation, this is a law firm we're hiring to secure the police accreditation and to write our rules and regulations. It's a legal firm, and that's why it went there.
Okay.
Your
thank
answer.
Any other questions for the first selectman on this department? Okay. Seeing none, let's move on to Department 120 contingency.
You'll see some changes from our adopted budget. We are increasing the contingency to 175. That's just a healthy number. We've dropped that in years past. As you also see, the $58,000, it was sitting out there from the public safety building. I think Joe made a good explanation that we put that in contingency. We didn't know what our bills might be. We didn't know when the building might be finished. It should be finished, by the way, in July. So as we start this budget that's on your tables in front of you right now, we'll also start the new police building, and all the departments will be moving over there July, August at the latest, and that's earlier than expected. We also have $99,000 sitting out there for payroll pending PR change. There's still some contracts that we have to negotiate and relationships out there. So that's sitting out there as well, and that's our contingency budget.
Questions on contingency? Okay. And hearing no questions, let's move on to the final two departments, 522 and 523 debt service. I believe this is Anna's.
Anna, it's all yours. From
Bailiwick.
Save the best for last, Anna.
I think this is pretty self-explanatory. Department 522 is the interest payments on all of our outstanding debt service, and Department 523 is the scheduled principal payments for what we have out there. And then, of course, in interest, we also have a provision for the our bonding that we'll do in August of this year. And you'll note that there was a reduction from when we originally started the budget process to when the Board of Selectmen took their action. When we began the budget process, I had used the numbers in previous pro forma debt projections that we had done. But with the interest rate environment coming down, I did work with our financial advisor and came up with the revised number of $187,000. The narratives do more or less kind of go over some of the particulars about all of the issues when they mature and so on and so forth. So I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Any questions on the interest payments? And 523 is the actual principal pay down department.
Yes, and so the, the number, the account number on the left-hand side kind of coordinates with the interest department, so being the principal and what the interest payments would be. And again, all the particulars of all the issues are outlined for you in the narratives. And I mean, it's our debt service. We are obligated to make the payments.
Can any of the ARP funds be used to pay down this debt? Is that an allowed expense?
No.
Okay. What about upcoming capital projects for the town?
Perhaps, and we're waiting for, again, direction from the US Treasury that's expected to come out about mid-May. They think no later than the 60th day that President Biden made this law, which would be May 11th. Then it goes, the money then gets transferred to the state on that day, and then they have 30 days to give it to us. They expect the US Treasury to release allowable uses of this money about that time.
Okay, mid-May. And do we have any idea of the actual receipt of the funds, the timing of it?
30 days from May 11th.
I'm sorry, 30 days from May 11th?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
50% of the funds, and the other 50% will come exactly a year later.
Okay.
To add to that, so understanding that the 60-day window is the federal government transferring the funds to the state governments, and then the state governments have 30 days to disperse it to all their local governments. So that's what, what defines the window of what our expected receipt date is.
What puts the Treasury on the clock is the entitlement towns are getting the payment directly in 60 days. It's not going to the state. Places like New Haven will get their $98 million check, or 50% of that. $98 million New Haven gets. So you can imagine all those cities are getting it directly from the US government, not going through the states on the 60th day. That's why the Treasury has to get it out by then. And that's all the things on the clock, on the calendar.
Okay. If there's no further questions, that would conclude our discussion on the budget presentations. Yes, Anna.
I just wanted to go back for a minute, if I could, when we were discussing the building department budget, when the department, it was thought that the numbers were reversed, but they weren't, because what happened is when the department head budgets went out, the UPSU union contract was not resolved yet. So it was at the Board of Selectmen level that the 2.25% salary increases were put in the budget. So if you, as we went through the budgets, if you look, the department had requested and the Board of Selectmen proposed columns are all different for the UPSU wages. The Board of Selectmen numbers are all higher, but then you'll also notice in the contingency budget that the original was greater than what it is now. So those funds were all disseminated throughout the various departments in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't, the process, I didn't pick up on it when it was brought up. So I just wanted to offer that point of clarification to the board.
That's very clear. Thank you. Okay. So that wraps up the budget presentations. Is there any old business that needs to be discussed? Would any board member like to discuss an old business item? Can't think of any myself. So let's move on to public discussion. I'll just check. I don't believe anybody's there. So there's nobody call on for public discussion, which brings us to board comments. Would any board member like to make a final comment this evening before we close? Okay, seeing nobody wanting to make a board comment. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting? Thanks, Ann Santoro. Peter, I saw your hand up. So you could be the second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thanks, everyone. Our next meeting, I believe, is on Monday, where we will continue with the remainder of the departmental budgets. Okay, have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.